In this section, we will cover the business fundamental basics of what business operations are and what you need to consider when improving your own business's operations. So ultimately, we're going to be looking at what makes up a business operation. We're going to define what business operations are, because sometimes this is a little bit of a confusing part on its own, as we can sometimes confuse what is actually governed by the business operation element of our business. So we need to first identify what it actually is, so then we can work through and help you and provide you with support in improving the operation of your business, so that we can ultimately improve the revenues and improve the profit at the end of your planned period. First, let's look at the definition of business operations. So business operations is the work of managing the inner workings of your business so that it runs as efficiently as possible. Whether or not your business makes products, sells products, or delivers a service, every small business owner must oversee and design a management process that organizes the behind-the-scenes work of the business. Operations and business operations encompasses all of the actions and the activities necessary to run the company and generate an income. So that's what business operations are. It's ultimately every element of day-to-day working in your business, from sales all the way through to finance. So we'll be looking at that in a little bit more detail over this entire module, and in this section we're going to continue to explain what the fundamentals are when it comes to business operations. So when we're talking about business operations, it's important to understand that when we refer to our day-to-day activities, we are considering everything through from sales all the way to finance, including what happens in the operations department. So the key here is to not confuse your business operations with your operations department. These are two separate things. You have an operations department that will oversee ultimately the delivery of projects to a customer, and then you'll have operations managers and everything that is encompassed in an operations department. However, your business operations goes far beyond that. This is all about the integration of all of your departments in one go. So how does sales speak with marketing? How does marketing liaise with sales? How do sales orders convert and then follow through all the way to the operational department of the company? How are invoices raised? How is management information obtained? How are management meetings conducted? When are they conducted? These are all of the business operations that we need to consider. And this is obviously a detailed section. So lots of things happening here, and there's lots of elements to consider. But the key is that we write these down in the very first instance. We need to understand what our business operations are. So when we get to that section, we'll be giving you some ideas on how to start thinking about your business operations as a whole, because there's likely lots of things that you are doing as a business owner at the moment, as a small to medium-sized business owner, that don't fit in a process or a system anywhere. There's just lots of work to do, and you're attempting to do as much of it as you can, and then you may be employing some members of the staff to try and help you and ease that workload. But ultimately, it's important to have a good design about what functions there are in your business, and then how we're going to integrate and tie everything together so that it acts on a day-to-day as efficiently as it possibly can. So you're not just constantly reacting to what's there and what's urgent. We've spoken previously in previous modules about constantly reacting to urgent and important tasks. But what we're going to do is plan out our business operations so that we know that the business can tick over day to day, and then we as business leaders can ultimately start working on the business as a whole and start looking at how we're going to develop our business and then diverse into other areas and ultimately achieve growth and better and healthier bottom line profits. So business operations really then is the detailed elements that create a structure so that your business can function without your input on a day-to-day. So breaking down then business operations and really identifying what is included in your business operations. You can see here the groupings: number 1, sales and marketing; number 2, production and distribution. Number 3, service. Number 4, management. So the idea is that really we understand that, again, it's not just an operational department or operations department that we're trying to improve. It's everything throughout sales and marketing, all the way through to management and finance at the end. So sales and marketing, this on its own as a department, or split into 2 departments, a sales department and marketing department, still have operational elements in the business. For example, inquiries coming into the business. How is that handled? Where does it go? Does it go into a piece of software? Is it owned by an individual within the company? Do you take on the leads and complete the qualification calls, put the criteria onto a system? There's lots of different things that need to be considered from an operational perspective when dealing with marketing and sales. You know, equally it goes through all the way to when do the salespeople follow up on their open and warm inquiries? When, at what stage is the order placed? When are you taking the sale? How is the order converted and then processed through to the operations department? This is, again, an important thing to consider when we're thinking about our business operations. This is a blueprint of what happens at what stage and who does it. So it's important to get out of the mindset of operations being the operations department. We're now thinking about, as a whole, what our business needs to do to function without us having to constantly make sure that everything is done on a day-to-day, and ultimately wasting our own time as business leaders ensuring that those things are done. We want it set up, we want to set it up into a system so that we can be confident in the fact that when we're not there, the business is still doing what it's meant to do on a day-to-day. Number 2, production and distribution. So ultimately this leads us into the delivery element of what it is that we do during our business operations. Once the order has been taken, how is that produced, distributed, and then delivered to the end client? If we're, doing something as simple as repairing a tap, what does that look like? How does the winning the order of that repair come into the operations department? How is that project managed? Is somebody from the customer services team contacting that customer and organising for that person to have their appointment in the diary? What is the delivery like? Is there a follow-up call? Are there any types of quality control in place? Is there any health and safety that needs to be considered? Again, there's such a broad element of what has to happen here. But again, we're just talking about the thinking of what business operations are as a whole. Number 3, service. So the type of service that we're providing to our end customer, whether it's business to business or business to consumer, our end customer needs to feel that they're being provided with the best service that they can. And service and customer service, more importantly, is governed by our business operations. What does the customer journey look like? Can it be improved? What trigger points are there? When do we talk to the customer? When do we get feedback from the customer? All of these things needs to be mapped out and blueprinted so that we've got our business operation laid out, and there's a blueprint there for us to follow and give us a guide to what we need to do on a day-to-day and what our employees need to do on a day-to-day. And then number 4, management. Ultimately, we will be able to map something from A all the way to Z and identify that journey and what needs to happen all the way across that process. And then it needs to be managed. We need to ensure that each thing and each component and each cog within that operational machine is functioning the way that it should be, so that again, we're ensuring the efficiency of our organization. Company functions. Again, there's 4 elements here within our company functions. We've spoken about company functions again within previous models, and this is number 1, equipment, number 2, people, number 3, processes, and number 4, systems. These are the elements that make up our functions. So what equipment do we need? What people do we need to have? What processes should we have in place? Adopted onto what systems? If you think of these 4 things, you can identify and map out what needs to happen from a business operations perspective. So the role of business operations then, and fundamentally it comes down to two elements. Number one, it's a guide. It's an entire guide for your entire company and every component and cog that works within your company, so that everybody in your company and everything in your company has a guide of what it's doing on a day-to-day, so that the minimum requirements are handled. And then secondly, the other purpose of having a good business operation set up is to act as a fail-safe. This is to limit any risks to you as a business owner and risks to the company, so that we can mitigate any potential issues and avoid all of the problems that we can possibly face on a day-to-day. You don't want to, as a business leader, have to be concerned with the very minor things not happening within your business and then ultimately creating problems when they haven't been handled or done correctly. So the role of a good business operation is to ensure that none of these points get missed, and everything that has to happen on a day-to-day does happen on the day-to-day. I'm going to talk now about the 10 operational pillars, and we've spoken a lot about what the fundamentals in operations are, in business operations specifically, and it does cover a lot of ground across lots of departments. So really there are 10 pillars that create the operations within our business. And these are the points really that we should consider when we start our brainstorming sessions about what it is that we need to do on our day-to-day. We need to think really of these areas and then consider these as the pillars of what our business operations are. So number one, and perhaps joint most importantly with number 10, we'll get to number 10, but number one is cross-functional collaboration. So how do each individual department within the company collaborate with each other and communicate with each other? How are they exchanging information? How is an inquiry moving all the way through the organization from inquiry all the way to invoice and payment? It's looking at that entire journey. So how are the departments communicating with each other and collaborating with each other? That is a fundamental pillar of business operations. Number two is the people. What are the people in your organization? What skills do they need to have to do their job? What is their job and when do they do it? This is a pillar of business operations. Number three, money. So from a cash collection perspective and a debtor's perspective and financial management perspective, we need to know that the money is in the right place. And we need a business operation and process set up to understand where the money is within the company, where it's coming from, where it is at the moment, and when we're going to receive it. Number four, change and communication. If there are any changes to the market, if there are any changes to your organization, how is that getting communicated across the entire organization? This is something that always needs to be considered, and it's sometimes if something happens in the sales department, for example, the operational department may not know about it. So if you come up with a new product or a new service or a new item that you're going to include in a package, for example, how is that change going to be communicated across the entire company so that you know everybody within the organization is operating on the same page? Number five, special projects and programs. Throughout the life cycle of your organization, you're going to have individual projects that occur. For example, recruitment campaigns. That's a very typical project that you'll have to govern and oversee and make sure that it's handled correctly. This fits in within your business operations. You need to be able to plan who handles this, when it's handled, when the campaign is run, and that it's handled correctly and open and closed as a project. Who is looking after these individual and special projects throughout your organization's life cycle? Number six, strategy and planning. We've spoken a lot in previous modules about strategy and planning. In your business operations, you need to build into your day-to-day and your month-to-month when these strategic elements are coming into play and when you're going to be planning your next move. this feeds very nicely into number 7, which is growth. What is the growth plan? How are we going to grow? When do we need to add people into the organization? At what point do we have to have recruitment campaigns? Where are the next set of inquiries coming from? Number 8, operation and execution. Now, this point is, in reality, the operations department. Again, not to be confused with the business operations. The operation and execution of essentially what it is that you've sold. How are you going to deliver to the customer what your sales team have promised? Number 9, data management. This is again an all-important element of your business operations. You need to make sure that you've got all of the correct data in all of the right places and accessible at the correct times. From an archiving perspective as well, if you're providing an ongoing customer support or care contract, you're going to want to have available data as and when you need it to be able to provide the service to that customer, which then ultimately leads us on to 10, which again, linking back to number 1, is probably one of the most important pillars in our entire business operation. That's customer service. We need to provide the best customer service that we possibly can, and this is fundamental. This isn't a department. Customer service is an attitude. Everybody within our organization has to be customer focused first. They have to want to provide the best customer service that they possibly can, and this is a function that's governed by our business operations. We need a customer focused attitude to run throughout our organization. It's so important that we follow good practices when dealing with customers, because good practice is met with reward and bad practices is met with failure. So we have an absolute commercial benefit towards providing good customer service. If we don't provide good customer service at a very minimum, unfortunately our bad practice is going to be met with failure. So this is one of the most fundamental pillars of operations. A recap on the fundamentals around operations then. Firstly, we need to consider that our business operations is everything that we do day to day. It's our day-to-day activity within the company. What has to happen so that we make our income at the end of that planned period? Number 2, don't confuse the operations department with your business operations. Your business operations is all about the collaboration between departments and what each individual department does and has to do on a day-to-day in order to ensure that you're getting the end profits that you've predicted. And number 3, it's important to understand the pillars that make up our business operations. We spoke about the 10 pillars that make up our business operations, and number 1, it's that cross-functional collaboration across each individual department. It's important that each individual department is working together, and we've created that synergy. And all the way through to customer service, we have to be providing the best customer service at every possible stage to our customer. Again, whether or not it's a business to business customer or a business to consumer, that customer needs and expects the best service that you can provide.